What's up, everybody? It's your boy Juju, and welcome back to another episode of the 1% of Juju podcast, where we teach you the practical steps to live your life like the 1%. So glad to be here. Okay, listen, I just got off of this amazing high. So obviously, you guys know I record my episodes like a week in advance. So meaning that like I just dropped an episode just now with Nicole that I had a chance to watch back. Amazing conversation. Obviously, fitness is huge for me. She's a fitness coach, an online fitness coach. Go listen to her. She's absolutely amazing. I'm in awe once again of that conversation. Really had a blast. I love all my guests, but obviously yeah, I play favorites. Who cares? No, but no, all my guests are amazing, seriously. But that conversation, obviously, recency bias, she was absolutely amazing. So I had a blast. So go back and listen to that. But today, you might be able to see by the podcast episode in the name, we're gonna do a market update. I asked you guys some questions on Instagram. I got a lot of questions, but honestly, they're all the same questions. So I ended up being like three questions. But I'm going to go through them. We're going to talk about this and do a little bit of a market update of just things going on right now, things that have evolved, things that have changed. Obviously, recently there's been a couple policy changes, there's been shifts, up, downs, recession, and things like that. I think that it would be cool maybe to do a monthly update of that nature to look at like, how markets are doing, how they're trending, what economists are saying, just some of the research that I'm doing. So you guys can go out and make educated guesses. And also my goal is really to reduce a little bit of that. There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of things going on. I just want to make sure that like I reduce a little bit of the anxiety that might be going on, because I completely understand if that's what's going on, but it's really not. There's no necessarily basis for that right now. You guys, we will all be okay. So, yeah, I just thought that I'd do a little bit of that today. So we're going to do that. Before we do that, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast so that you're with the family when we become the number one personal finance podcast in the world. We have some more fire guests. I'm going to reach out to some more fire guests. But if you guys have people that you want to see, comment below. I'm going to shoot my shot in their DMs. As always, in a professional way. You guys know me. But yeah, no, there's just a lot going on. There's a lot of noise going on. So I wanted to make sure that I update people and that, we kind of, as we grow together and we invest together, I'm receiving a lot of positive messages, but I want to make sure that it's a continuous growth all together. So let's get to answering some of your questions, but first let's dive into things and see where things have been. From an interest rate standpoint, obviously I made a couple episodes about interest rates rising recently, and what the impact is on you. If you haven't listened to that, make sure that you go listen. It is important, right? Like, it is important. I know that it sounds like finance talk. I try to simplify it a little bit so you can make sure that you understand and you're going out and making educated decisions and how that impacts certain things that you may want to do, like, whether it's taking out a loan, taking out, buying a house, taking out debt, investing, things of that nature, how all that is impacted by the rise and decrease of interest rates. So make sure you go check that out. I'll probably link it here. I always say that, but the reality is I probably won't. But I'll link it here. I'll make sure to do my due diligence. But yeah, make sure you guys go and check that out. But the last update that we got on interest rates, they haven't changed a whole lot this month. Last update we got was June 1st, that they increased another 50 basis point. At least that was in Canada. I believe the Federal Reserve in the US, the same thing happened there. We're expecting things to stabilize a little bit for the rest of the year. There might be another increase. There might not be. So interest rates aren't just going to continue climbing the rest of the year. At some point, there's going to be a little bit of a stabilization. But once again, if you don't know what that means exactly, go back and look at that episode. I break it down. And if you guys have more questions, I'm more than happy to do another episode about that to maybe break it down even further. And some people are actually hinting at a quicker rally than we thought, and that the stocks may be going back in the right direction really soon. So I am one of those people that is hinting at that, that is very optimistic about that. But once again, I am nothing but a guy that records a podcast. So do not take my word as gospel or as financial advice. That does not mean take everything you have and go toss it into into a an investment portfolio that you know nothing about, because it could get worse before it gets better, but it will get better. I can't really promise that, but I will anyway. So let's take a look at this one article. I'll put it in the description. I wanted to, obviously, ideally, it would have been nice to, if you're watching on YouTube, I'll try. Actually, I won't screen record this, but I'll link it in YouTube. But this article basically talked. It's, once again, it's an opinion piece. It is not anything peer reviewed or any of that. But it is by on Yahoo Finance. It is by an analyst that talks about the effects of the recent changes in the market. But there's a couple of reasons why we believe that things may head back up, and I'm going to touch on that when I answer all the questions in a little bit. I just don't want to repeat myself, because I think that some of the questions that you guys asked kind of touch on that. So I will make sure to do that. So thank you so much for sending those in. But I will link the article here in the description, and hopefully it helps someone out there. Looking at evolution in the actual market, GTA real estate prices are down 4%. Why is that? I know that a lot of people might be really excited about that, because in the past year, 2 years, it looked like no one would ever be able to afford a home at the rate it was going. Right? It seemed like, okay, well, as soon as I hit let's say it's March of 2022, it's like, okay, great, I need $50,000 for a down payment, and as soon as I hit my $50,000, well, prices have gone up so much that now I need $60,000, and now as soon as I hit the $60,000, now prices have gone up again. So it seemed like this unattainable wheel, but it is nice for a lot of people that at least looking to get into the market to see a 4% decrease in average prices, or at least the average price of homes sold decreased by 4%, which is nice. There's a couple of reasons for that. Obviously, the interest rates being one of them. Obviously, you're probably not as happy if you're in the process of selling your home, or you were thinking about selling your home. You're like, well, hey, I want to take part in this whole wild bidding war game that people were playing. Well, sucks for you. You were too late. But in all honesty, it is nice. It kind of resets the market and solidifies it. And honestly, if you've been holding on to homes for the last few years, you're probably in a good spot where you're still making some gains. Maybe you could have benefited more if you sold at the beginning of the year, but it's okay. You're still going to make a good amount of money. But if you're probably in a bad spot if you started to flip like a month ago, because the reality is, like, the market honestly flipped. I'm back in the house search market, and talking to a lot of realtors and talking to a variety of mortgage agents. They'll tell you, like, the house flipped literally in a matter of days. So people put their house on the market expecting one thing, and then they had to put their house down because the bidding wars weren't happening and they were getting underbid. So it's nuts. So to go back to why that may be happening. So number one, obviously the interest rate. So people can no longer afford, we spoke about it, like on average, if you're thinking about like a $600,000 home, if you increase the mortgage price or the interest rate by 5 basis points, it's like 150, $200 extra on your mortgage. So it's a solid amount of for a $600 to $500,000 home. So it's a significant amount of money that you're now adding on top of, right, if you're looking at from a monthly cash flow standpoint, that people can't just go out and bid wild amounts of money in order to afford a house. So that's impacting everything, right? It goes out and it impacts a variety of things. Also, because that is happening, people don't know what's going to happen to the price of homes. So people aren't as willing to just, like, a year ago, people were willing to, let's say a home is on the market for $500,000. Well, I don't mind putting on $600,000 for a house because at the rate things are going, in a year it's going to be worth $700,000. So I win, right? So that was the strategy that people were adopting. Well, now you can't do that anymore. So that's also driving the prices down a little bit because you don't know what's going to happen to the housing market over the next couple of years. One other thing that people aren't taking into consideration and aren't thinking about, a lot of placers are actually now requesting people to start coming back to the office. As you know, we get away from this pandemic, a lot of people are more and more passionate about, hey, let's get back into the office, let's do some more in-person stuff and things of that nature. So it's not as suitable for people to just be all over the place or that have driven some of the places, outside of the city. Obviously, we only looked at prices, average prices in Toronto, but a lot of people that are on the outskirts of a variety of cities, of big cities, they can't just be wherever they want now because a lot of places are wanting people to be back in person. So now you are a little bit more tied down to whatever location you are, and it make actually being accessible. So a lot of people, and maybe I am speaking from experience, but a lot of the places that I've seen, that is the situation that people find themselves in. They're like, well, I bought this house, 2 years ago or a year ago, thinking I'm never going to go back to the office, but now, we're starting to get pressure to get back into the office, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, from like a productivity standpoint. But we'll see. I'm interested in hearing, if you can comment down below or put a rating, whatever you prefer. Give me your thoughts about people wanting to go back to the office, whether it's hybrid completely or whatever it is. If you find yourself being more productive in the office, because I'm personally, I enjoy getting out of the house and going to the office. The only thing I always say is, I want it to make sense, right? If I'm going to go out, sit in traffic for a certain amount of time and go to a physical office, right? Gas prices, all that. That's another thing, right? People can't live super far because gas prices are so expensive. So that's having an impact on a lot of things. But if I'm going to go out and actually sit in traffic, pay all this gas, pay for parking potentially, or sit on the subway, sit on the train, sit on the bus, whatever it is for you for this extended amount of time, what am I doing in the office that is more productive than if I was at home, right? Like I just don't want to go to the office and then sit in front of a bunch of Zoom calls. That's a little bit of the conversation that I'm having, but like I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on it and where you stand on it. If you're like, no, I should be able to work completely remote and things like that, because I do think that there are some advantages of actually being in an office and being able to collaborate with other people. So next up, the S&P 500. That is still down 6%. They had a little bit of a rally a couple weeks ago. Very small rally, but over the course of the month, obviously, it is down 6%. That is something, once again, a lot of companies are part of the S&P 500, right? There's a ton of companies from a variety of industry. There's a lot of retail companies in the S&P 500. That might continue taking a hit. We have no idea, right? Like I said, it could rebound tomorrow. It could not, but we're going to talk about that once again. There's a couple questions that came from that. One thing I was surprised about, there wasn't a lot of questions when it pertained to real estate, which is usually my most demanded topic and my most tuned in topic, which is really cool. I love the fact that there wasn't as many questions when it came to real estate. Maybe you guys are all now buying homes, which is cool for you guys. But yeah, the S&P 500 is down 6%. We're going to talk a little bit more about what's happening with stocks in the stock market, but not something necessarily to be worried about. 6% down is not a crazy amount. Actually, let's look into what we're looking at for the year, and it's probably going to change by the time I edit this, but um, for the year to date, we're looking at, okay, negative 18%, right? So that's a significant amount. Um, but it's still not anything that like I would necessarily be worried about. Uh, this is something that is supposed to happen. This is normal. We always spoke about this, right? There's down years, there's up years. Um, So yeah, overall, but as far as a monthly update, I know it's the first monthly update that I do, so it probably made sense to actually speak about what has happened over the course of the year. But yeah, down 18% so far. Bitcoin, I'm not going to go through every single cryptocurrency, but Bitcoin probably has taken the biggest hit in the past month, well, over the past year, really, but down 26% just in June, which is crazy to think about because it's it's so funny because we were talking about this, I don't know, a couple months ago, and I couldn't go back to my previous episodes, and I feel like my messaging was the same that it was now, and it was like we there's no way to prove, like everyone was saying, like this is the future, this is next up, this is that. There's no way to prove any type of consistency and data when it comes to whether it's crypto or any the NFTs and things like that in this world. And we're seeing that now. I'm still a big believer of them. I don't think that they're necessarily going anywhere. um, the best way, we just don't have a lot of data to support that. The best way to think about it, uh, I believe I've said it on this podcast, a person like Gary Vee has said it before. If you guys listen to any of his content, I know like he's kind of a hit or miss from like a people like him. I think he's very much misunderstood, but he said something really insightful, which was when the internet came around, right? A lot of people were just as skeptical, and then it crashed, and then it rebuilt, but in the right way, right? Because everybody's saying the exact same thing that is going on now, or that was going on over the past year, happened. A lot of people, just any kind of project, bam, millionaire, bam, millionaire. And then it crashed, and half the projects actually died, and the ones that were built right are the ones that now prevail. So if you were an investor, you know, in the late 90s or early 2000s in a company like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, right? Like right now, you're looking like a genius because you made a ton of money. But there is also a ton of other companies that I don't even know the name because I was literally a child and playing with, um, what do we call those, with like mini cars, with remote control cars? Is that what they're called? I'm a mess. But I was playing with those at that time, so I had no idea what the tech scene looked like at that time. But a lot of those were probably pretty popular, and then they crashed, and then they rebuilt the right way. So when it comes to the NFT and the crypto game, it's probably the same thing. I am going to do an update really soon with some of my guests. Probably going to bring Jeff back to talk about it, and some of my other connections in the crypto world, to do an update and how to maybe handle and how to think about. The crypto game in this bear market. But overall, we just don't have enough data to know what's going to happen next. I wouldn't be able to predict. That's probably one area that I am a little bit more worried, just because I have no clue. Right, but I'm not, like, I wouldn't say I lose a whole lot of sleep. Like, I lose a whole lot of money, I would say that, but I don't lose a whole lot of sleep over my crypto portfolio. Uh, that is that. Let's get to answering some of the questions. All right, I'm excited for this one. So, question number one: what is causing the recession? That's, I don't know why I'm laughing. This is really not funny. Um, so you guys probably remember Rob, which was on my podcast, but we were in Miami together at the beginning of the year, and we're thinking about this crypto game and everything that's happening, and we're kind of saying like, hey, there's so many people right now that are getting rich that aren't supposed to be rich, that aren't doing it the right way, that they're just speculating on something and then pretending to be experts, and it's working, and it worked for a lot of people, and that's a little bit of why recessions happen. Is like things get out of control, they get out of hand, inflation becomes through the roof, right? Everything becomes super expensive because there's this group of people that has this insane amount of capital now that's driving up the price of everything, creates shortages in other areas, which makes things a little bit more scarce and whatnot. So that's usually what creates recession in whatever area. If you look back, like I want to talk about maybe 2008 because it's close enough that I wasn't necessarily like investing in real estate in 2008. I was how old was I? I was like 14 years old in 2008. I want to say. Oh man, and now I'm revealing my age. But yeah, I was around like I was in high school. I know that. Um, so I wasn't necessarily like investing in real estate at the time, but it's close enough that I know, I've done a lot of research on it and I have an idea of what's going on. Now, they were just handing out mortgages. So a lot of people were buying homes that weren't necessarily supposed to buy homes, like people that couldn't necessarily afford the home, afford a mortgage, people that didn't have the right credit and things of that nature. So a lot of people that are in their 20s or early 30s now, they're like, well, it's so hard for me to get a mortgage or to get to investing. And it's like, yeah, it didn't used to be, right? People used to hand out these loans and at wild interest rates. And once again, when people are just buying, people that aren't supposed to be, like, yes, housing is a right, but like, we're people that aren't supposed to be homeowners just yet, right? Because they still have to, you can't skip certain steps, are becoming homeowners. um, Obviously that creates a shortage in housing, which drives the price up because the people that are selling the house, while they can sell for wild amount of prices, and it got to a point where it was unsustainable. The bank didn't have enough money to back all this, and things like that, and it crashed completely, created a recession, and it's a reset so that we can build back the right way. So that's a very long-winded answer as of what may be creating this recession, but also we don't know, right? Like, it could be inflation, it could be the the result of the pandemic. The things that we thought were going to happen 2 years ago are now happening. It could be a lot of things. That's why you can never really predict it. And you just have to, and we're also not in a recession yet, right? You haven't seen the drastic amount of decline in, retail spending and drastic increase in unemployment in order to declare this a recession. So we just don't know what's going to happen just yet. Is there a timeline on when this is going to end? Wouldn't that be beautiful if I just knew exactly when this is going to end? Because I would just wait until that day and invest all my money in the market, or wait till we close to that day and then invest all my money into the market. But there isn't. There really isn't. My speculation, once again, my opinion. Don't take this. I've been spreading this fake news around a lot. And if you're watching me on YouTube, you can see me doing these air quotes. If you're just listening in, you can only hear me say that I'm doing air quotes. But yeah, I've been spreading this fake news that I don't actually believe that it's going to be a bloodbath. I think that people are way too scared, way too careful, and usually the opposite of what we think is going to happen happens, right? So in 2020, once again, when we declared a global pandemic, when everything got shut down, the global economy got shut down, everybody thought the exact same thing, right? The economy is going to crash, housing is going to crash, all these things. What ended up happening afterwards? Right now, there's a little bit of a reset. Right, the Fed's increasing interest rates, whatever it is. But I just don't think that it's going to crash completely to the point where it was a couple of years ago, because too many people are expecting it, too many people are waiting for it. So that's my 2 cents. I haven't changed much of my habits. If it doesn't, I wouldn't necessarily be hurt. There's ways to prepare for it, which we're going to touch in a second. But I don't really, I don't really think that it's going to last a super long amount of time. But that's just my thoughts. It could, and if it does, we'll be okay. But I just don't think it will. Once again, my thought. What are things that I should do / stop doing to prepare for a recession? It depends. It really depends. That's a good question, but it depends where you are, and it depends what you have been doing, right? So if you have been spending money lavishly on a bunch of things that you don't need, stop doing that. But you should have stopped doing that a while ago. But if you've been following certain principles, and it's so interesting because everything that I teach is applicable, and I don't necessarily teach, but I give my opinion on a bunch of things, right? But all of that is applicable whether you're in a when the market's going down, whether the market's going up, and in the end, you're going to end up in the right spot and in the right position. But if you've been keeping 3 to 6 months of emergency savings aside, if you're able to put money down on a house that you can actually afford. If you have been, living below your means, then there, or investing maybe, let's say, 20% of your 15 to 20% into the market on a periodic basis of your salary, of your income, sorry, into the market on a periodic basis. There really isn't anything that you should be doing different or that you should stop doing. The only thing that I would recommend right now is make sure, like I said, you do have that emergency saving. We don't know what's going to happen. If you don't have that, make sure that you make that a priority. And as soon as possible, you try to build that emergency savings account in order to prepare for that. Don't leverage too much debt, but you should never be doing that in the first place, right? Like your debt, yeah, there's good debt, there's bad debt, but it should always be a manageable amount of debt, something that you feel comfortable with, something that you understand, low interest rates. So right now, it's probably not the best idea to go out and take out a bunch of debt because interest rates are really, really high. So, and get maybe a little bit more, to start doing, maybe get a little bit more aggressive into paying off some of your debts, because, like I said, we just don't know what's going to happen. Um, Once again, another timeline question. Should I pull my money out of the market? Please don't. Like, no. Once again, if you've been over leveraged into the market, like, and now you have no more money, I get it. But you shouldn't be in that position. Like, come on, we talked about this. This is not the time to pull out. We buy low, we sell high. This is the time to buy. And actually, if you're young, if you're below 40, I would say, if you're above 40, you should still be excited about this. But if you're younger than 40 years old, you should be so excited about this recession, right? This is actually an exciting time. You get to buy these things at a low price and let them sit and hope for them to recover. So, no, please do not sell or pull any money out of the market. Such an interesting question. I got that a lot. I feel like maybe I haven't been teaching anything on this podcast, because that's the one thing we always want to, you know, buy low, sell high. Don't sell at a loss. That's not what we want to do. What will be the impact on my? I got this question only once. This is a good one. So, I mean, that's personal. We have no idea. It's going to impact a variety of industries. Maybe I could answer that as a question. How is it going to impact a variety of industries, right? So I just spoke about the fact that interest rates are going up. It's more expensive to take out loans. It's more expensive. Your credit card might have a higher interest rate. So try not to leverage too much debt, those things. There's going to be a couple questions. I think that's next. No, that is not. But there are a couple questions in here about, the likeliness of people losing their job. It's a possibility. If you're working in retail, that's just it's a very tough, or anything that touches retail, it is a very difficult industry because, like I said, retail spending goes down. So therefore, the amount of money that retailers spend on, whether it's advertising or hiring and all those different things, or even technologies, like for myself, like, I don't sell into retail, but I do, I am a technology salesman, like, but all that does become deprioritized, and the biggest priority becomes, saving money, staying in a good cash position. So if you're in retail, like, it could have more of an impact on you than anybody else, but that's not to say that it will. There's really no telling what impact it will have on specific people. But I should also speak about the opportunity, right? Like, it may come with different opportunities, because as we're thinking about decreasing cost, what are great areas to decrease costs? Automation, right? So technology is something that's going to become really important to a lot of companies. Like, they're like, okay, well, I can do this at a cheaper price than labor. Maybe you switch a little bit. It's a great opportunity if you're in it purely for the money, right? Like, it's not like a passion thing or a career thing. If it's purely a financial reason, it might be a good opportunity to look into a different field, a different career, right? Like things like reusable energy, that's not going anywhere. Companies are going to continue investing because that's still a priority. They're going to find money in order to invest in those things. Financial services in certain areas, like if you think about the bank, right? Like they still have to, like, you're not stopping to use your bank account. You're still going to need to go to the branch, and you're still going to need to be able to do certain things. So if you want to, think about like some skills to learn, maybe it has to do with something banking related or within those banks. Healthcare, right? Healthcare isn't going anything whether you don't pay for healthcare based on how well how well the stock market is doing. You're always going to need people in healthcare and need people, certain services within healthcare, and they're always going to be investing in their services. So those are some areas that I would say like opportunities, and how it could impact people and what to think about during this time. But honestly, there's really no telling how it could impact any individual. Um, One question here is it time to be more conservative with investing? Um, no, I would say it's time to be more aggressive. Once again, my opinion, great opportunity to buy low, sell high. Time to do that. I'm not slowing down any of my investing. I'm trying to stay the same. The only thing that I'm not doing that much different. I'm telling you guys, everything that I teach is to be applied in all times, and it works. It's a technique that works. It's a slow grind. It's not a get rich quick scheme, but you have the opportunity to get rich quick. It can happen, but don't plan for it, right? So that's why I always say, but if you're just steady with it, and you have this certain amount, you have a clear budget, an amount allocated, sorry, to investing, and you continue putting it in, it is possible that in 2 years you're looking at me and you're like, hey, I started with 10 grand and now have 100. It is a possibility, but don't count on it. If you're trying to flip your 10 grand into 100, it's just tough. I'm first of all not going to be the person to be able to recommend you on anything. I can tell you I have turned 10 grand into 100, within a year, but I wouldn't tell you, oh, this is how I did, go do it again, because it's not something that I would ever recommend. Not that I did anything wrong. Like, I just invested $10,000 into a property that ended up gaining over $100,000 in value. But it's not something that I can tell you right now, go invest the same $10,000 and you're going to make your $100,000. So please don't try to do that. Next question: what's the likelihood I lose my job? Okay, I had this. This was a question that I got like so many times, so many of that question, and I'll tell you, you guys are not gonna like this answer. It is possible. You could lose your job. Like, that's a very real reality. No matter what you do, no matter, I just spoke to you about some of the industry that probably that likeliness decreases a little bit or whatever. But it's a very real possibility. Once again, if you're only under 40, under 35, this should be the last of your worries. A reset is a great opportunity. I've spoken to a lot of people recently, and people that are very successful, that have made seven figures in a year, people that are making a lot of money, that are worth well over 8 and sometimes 9 figures, and a lot of them, they come from places, and they'll tell me like, hey, I lost my job twice during 2 recessions. There's a person I spoke to recently. They literally, during the 2001, I want to say, recession, they lost their job there because their company filed for bankruptcy. And then during 2008, their company filed for bankruptcy. And I'm like, how do you handle this? And that's 2 times, right? The person had kids, all these things, and every single time they bounced back and they were able to make them something out of themselves. Now, it's a scary time, right? That's why you want to be ready. Keep a good emergency fund, and that's why I wanted to talk about. Like, that's why you want to keep a good emergency fund, live below your means, and all of those things. It is a possibility, but I promise you, you will be okay, right? Like, job losses, recession, they happen to people. They've happened to people over the course of history, but you will bounce back, whether it's, you taking advantage of that opportunity to take time for yourself and really refocus, reshift, work on your mental health, or whether it's, okay, well, I'm going to find a different skill, uh, maybe go out and find something that is a little safer, that we're not going to need to, I'm not going to go through this if another recession comes, or maybe something that would make you more money once we come out of the recession. It's finding those needs, identifying those needs, and going after those things. Maybe that is an opportunity for you to do that, but you will be okay if that comes. I'm going to drive through this because I know this is getting a little long. I want to make sure that I wanted to make sure that I answered those questions, but I think I lingered on some of the questions a little too much. Um, was likely that I had a question about me quitting my job. Like, when am I going to quit my job? I had that a couple times. Like, why am I still at my job? It's such a funny question. Did I say that I hate my job at some point? I love working. I don't think, like, newsflash. I'm in a position now. Like, if I wanted to retire right now or like do things outside of work, I make enough money outside in order to sustain myself. Like, so I'd probably be fine. I'm at work. Like, honestly, I don't necessarily hate what I'm doing. I have a pretty healthy relationship with my work, and I really enjoy what I'm doing right now. Also, I've been in this place recently where I try to be very thankful for what I do have and where God has put me in life, because very often I forget some of those things. But I don't come from a place where you get to go to a fancy office with big glass windows and fancy conference rooms and really nice technology to work. So just the fact that that's something that's available to me, and that's where I am today, I'm super thankful for that, and I enjoy that, and I want to expose more people to that in that avenue in order to build wealth and create wealth. So not in a rush to leave my job anytime soon. What do I like about working in tech sales? I think that it's very different than what you think about. Like, I always tell my fiance, it's really hard to sell to a salesman because I can see through, like, the car salesman technique. Like, I'm going through, like, I'm working with realtors right now. I'm working with car salesmen and all their little techniques to, like, kind of like what you assume selling is. They just don't work with me because you have to be very customer centric and worry about solving a problem. But I am actually trying to talk more about you know tech sales and my day job, and what I like so much, and maybe giving you guys a little bit more of an exposure to that. So if that's something that's interesting, you can message me on social media or comment down below, and I'm more than happy to make content about that. So, but no, really do appreciate that question. I really do love what I do. The biggest misconception about working in tech sales is that you do have to do a lot of selling, and that it's like being a car salesman, that you're just sitting there trying to convince people to buy from you. And it's very, very different. It's just really understanding people, having conversations with people, and being like, how can I help you? Like, honestly, the part where I always say, and the people that I coach and teach, I always tell them, like, you got to think about, what does this person care about, and how do we make this I've spoken about it before. How do we make this a win-win, a situation where we both win, right? Like, what does this person care about? And genuinely, what they care about is not, how is this software going to help the company? But the person I speak with, they care about, looking good to their manager or their boss or whatever it is, and they care about hitting their bonus so they can get promoted. They care about, getting money so they can take their family on a nice trip, buy their wife a new car or a new piece of jewelry, whatever it is. And it's getting to that and be like, hey, how can I get you to that point, from point A to point B, and working with them along that journey. So that's I would say that that's the biggest misconception. What does a day in the life look like? I don't know if you guys are talking about this was just one question. I thought I'd answer it. I don't know if you're talking from like my day job look like, or what I do on a daily basis, but usually obviously in the morning it's pretty, like, I have my morning routine that I've put on TikTok, so go check that out. Usually I go to work, like, usually get a workout in, all these great things, right? Meditate, read, all of that. Then I'll go to work during the day. Like I said, what a day in the life looks like, I'm more than happy to do more of that if that's content that interests people. And then after work, that's my time to work on all my side hustles. I usually have a couple meetings, and a variety of things to do. I also sometimes have Bible study, but usually my evenings are pretty busy, to be honest. Like, I usually am working on at least 2 or 3 projects. I work with my uncle and a variety of things. So there's that. Is tech sales a good career? Amazing career. You can make a lot of money. And like I said, it's very rewarding. You get to work with really cool people, honestly, and you working on, it's not as tangible because you don't see, like, if I sell you a shirt and then I see you with a shirt on, or my tattoo artist, he used to tell me, like, it's really cool when he sees the finished product of a tattoo sleeve that he's done, or whatever, a tattoo that he's done, and you can see it. So for us, like, we don't get to see that, but it is really still really, really fun because you're working with people in a different way because of that, right? Like, you really have to prove, like, if I sell you a shirt, like, you can see that the shirt looks nice if you like it or not, and then you're going to buy it. But in this situation, I'm selling you something that's not like tangible, that is based on future results, maybe whatever. So you're working in a very strategic way. And like I said, the money's good. So that's really, really cool. And finally, is selling technology a simple or complex sell? I would say complex. But yeah, we can dive into that another time. But like I said, I wanted to not make this too long. I'll wrap this up. If you found this helpful, I hope you did. Let me know, because I want to do more of these monthly overviews. But as always, I'll check us out on social media. Make sure that you are subscribed. But for today, make sure that you are taking the steps today to ensure that you're 1% closer to your goals than you were yesterday. Have a good one, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.